I'm Caro and welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to be making baked potato soup. I love baked potato soup. It's one of my favorites. Honestly, I'm the type of person that goes to a restaurant and orders soup. What I love about this recipe is that it takes all the flavors from a loaded baked potato and turns them into a cozy, hearty soup. And best of all, this recipe is really easy to make and it all comes together in just one pot. So stick around to see how I make it. We're going to start by prepping all the ingredients for the soup. The first thing we'll start with is the medium onion. I like to get all the chopping and prep done first and have all the ingredients ready to go. I recently saw a video where they explain how to cut an onion in such an efficient way rather than the more traditional way where you slice into it horizontally, which can be so much more tricky. So basically, when you cut the top of the onion off and then you cut down the middle to make the two halves, you can then cut long ways along the vertical lines the onion has, and then you can just cut down horizontally and you have a really easy dice. I am a home cook, but I am always watching lots of cooking YouTube videos, and whenever I see a new technique that I definitely think can help me, I go ahead and try to practice it in the kitchen. Once we're done with the onions, we'll go ahead and place them in a little bowl just off to the side. Now we're going to chop the green onions. We're just going to run the knife through them to give them a chop. Most of these are going to go into the soup for flavor. You can also chop a little bit extra to go ahead and top the soup at the end. I just chose at the end to chop up some chives just because they look a little bit nicer, but I usually on the daily just use the green onions. Once those are chopped, we can go ahead and set them to the side. Now we're going to peel and chop the potatoes. So I'll peel all 4 potatoes, and here I am again using that tip that I let you guys know to just have a little bowl on hand and use it kind of like as a little trash bowl. From here, I'm going to go ahead and cut the potatoes. I'm going to try my best here to cut them all roughly the same size. What we want to make sure is that they're all kind of the same so that they cook evenly in the soup. The last thing we really want is for some pieces to be really cooked through and some to still be a little bit hard. Also, as I'm cutting the potatoes, I'm putting them into a bowl with water. This is going to help them to not oxidize and turn brown. Since we are cutting all the ingredients ahead of time, I just kind of leave them in the bowl with water until I'm ready to put them in the soup. So I'm going to go ahead and shred some cheese. I like to go ahead and shred from a fresh block of cheese. I feel like sometimes the flavor is just a little bit nicer. But you could definitely skip this step and just use, pre-shredded cheddar. I like to use sharp cheddar. I feel like the flavor is a little bit better, but you can also use mild cheddar. I'm going to go ahead and put a friendly little reminder here when shredding on one of these shredders. Just always go carefully and slowly. I don't know how many times I've slipped and, grazed my finger on it, so just be careful. So that's the shredded cheese there, and once we're done with it, this is the one ingredient that I will go ahead and pop back into the fridge. Next, we're going to prep the bacon. The bacon is really important in this recipe. We're going to render it down to use the fat to cook the onions in and add flavor to the soup like that. And we'll also be adding the whole cooked strips to the soup while the potatoes cook. And we'll then again use the cooked chopped bacon to top the soup. So this soup is super bacony. The reason I leave the 2 bacon strips whole is because we're going to use them in the soup to give flavor while the potatoes cook, and it will get pretty gummy while they're cooking in the liquid, so I like to remove it once the soup is done. It's just there to give flavor. The rest of the bacon I'll just go ahead and give it a chop. I'm just gonna cut it into small pieces so that when it's rendered and all cooked out, it's nice and crispy and small little bits to top the soup with. Also, as you can see, I was kind of struggling here to cut the bacon. Make sure when you're going to do this that your knives are nice and sharp so that you don't struggle as much as I did. Like I said at the beginning of the video, guys, I really love soup. I've just come to love making them because you can just pack so much flavor into one easy meal. It takes a little bit of prep sometimes at the beginning, but then you just kind of like pull it all together at the end, and it really pays off with flavor. Also, now that the weather is changing and it's just a little bit cooler outside, it's fall time, I feel like these soups are just the perfect thing on a cozy night, or if you just want to put together kind of like a quick meal that still packs flavor. I think these are really fun to make. Now, the bacon was the last thing that we had to prep, so I'm gonna go ahead and just put this aside on a tray and we can start cooking.
Do you know what the secret ingredient is to this channel? You guys hitting like and subscribe. And thanks, you guys are the best.
We're gonna start now by cooking the bacon. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the pot on the stove on high heat. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with about like a tablespoon of olive oil. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put the bacon in and go ahead and render it. So along with all the chopped bacon, I'm also gonna put in the 2 whole strips of bacon and cook those down as well. As it's cooking, I do like to go ahead and move it around sometimes just to make sure it's not sticking too much. It does stick a little bit to the bottom, which is okay because all that's going to give some flavor to the soup anyways, but I just don't like for it to get too dark or too stuck on the bottom. Since there's quite a bit of bacon in there and you have the whole strips as well, moving it around is also going to help to make sure that all the bacon is kind of getting heated and cooked through so it all gets crispy. If there are any little bits at the bottom that I see are kind of like getting a little darker, I'll just go ahead and scrape those up, make sure that nothing is sticking too much to the bottom or getting too dark. You can see here how much fat we rendered from the bacon, which is going to go ahead and help us cook the onions and make the roux for the soup. Now that the bacon is nice and browned, I'm going to go ahead and remove it and place it off to the side. Another little tip here, you can see how much oil is being rendered from this bacon. You'll see in a little bit that it's just a little bit too much, so I am going to remove some. But when I go ahead and remove bacon fat from anything that I'm cooking with bacon, I always put it into another little like bowl so I can save it to use it for later. It stores really well and it's super easy to use to make some scrambled eggs and add a little bit of bacon flavor to that. Even if you're gonna make like a congri or something like that, it's really nice to use like bacon fat in it to give it more flavor. So don't throw away your bacon fat. So depending on how much fat is rendered from the bacon, you can go ahead and decide if it's a little bit too much. I thought it was a little bit too much here, so I went ahead and removed some of it. And I left about 1/4 cup of oil at the bottom of the pot. So to that pot, we're going to go ahead and add the whole medium onion that we chopped earlier. And we're going to go ahead and cook those onions until they're fully like translucent. Since there was some bacon fat at the bottom of the pot as well while we're cooking, I did make sure as I was cooking to go ahead and scrape that up, not only for flavor, but just so it didn't burn too much. So now we're going to go ahead and make the roux. This is what's going to go ahead and help thicken our soup. Basically a roux is just flour and fat cooked together, and that just causes whatever liquids you're going to add to that later to kind of thicken up. I did have to add just a little bit more bacon fat to this. It was just a little bit too dry. But we're going to go ahead and cook this down at least like 5 minutes. We really want to cook out all like the raw flour flavor and just go ahead and cook that through until it almost looks like super dried up and like a paste. It's ready at that point. So to the roux, we're going to go ahead and add the rest of the ingredients to actually make the soup broth and to go ahead and allow the potatoes to cook. We're going to add 1 32-ounce carton of chicken stock plus 2 cups, which is basically a carton and a half. And we're going to also add 3 cups of whole milk. I'm going to give it a quick mix just to incorporate that with the roux ingredients. To that, I'm going to add in the 2 whole bacon strips. And I'm going to go ahead and add in about 1/4 cup of the green onions that we chopped up. I'm also going to add in about a teaspoon of salt just to start and to cook the potatoes in, but we'll taste for salt later and adjust. Now we can add the potatoes in. I went ahead and drained the water that we had them sitting in, and I'm going to go ahead and carefully try to put the potatoes in. This part I always make a mess, splashing everywhere. Once they're in, you can go ahead and put the heat back on high and just let this cook through, and we're going to go ahead and check it back when we think the potatoes are ready to make sure they're cooked through. After it's been cooking for a little bit, I'll go ahead and check some of the larger pieces of the potato to make sure they're cooked through. And now we're ready to add the finishing ingredients. Once the potatoes were done cooking, I did turn off the heat, and we'll just continue to cook with the heat just reducing down. But I'll add the 1 cup of cheddar cheese right in and mix that in. And then I'll go ahead and add the 3/4 cup of sour cream. Once those two are in, I'll give it a really good mix just to make sure that everything is incorporated. And the soup is basically done at that point. We'll also go ahead and check the salt at this point and add some if it needs. You can also, if you like the soup a little bit thicker, you can go ahead and take some of the potato pieces and mash them up and then add them back in, or just smash them in the pot, and that'll go ahead and thicken it up just a little bit more. I went ahead and tasted it, and it just needed a little bit more salt, so I'm going to go ahead and add that in and mix it. So now that the soup is done, all that's left to do is to go ahead and get the toppings ready. You can use some of the green onions that we chopped earlier in the video, but I just went ahead and chopped up some chives. They're just a little bit smaller version of the green onion, and I feel like they just look a little bit fancier, a little nicer on top. So let's go ahead and serve it up. Guys, I don't know about you, maybe this is just a me thing, but there's nothing more homey or delicious than to see a nice bowl of soup with tons of toppings on top, just nice and warm and cozy. It's such a great soup. It's honestly one of my favorites. I think I make it about every 2 weeks. It has great hearty flavor. The bacon, the cheese, the onions, the potatoes, they just all work so well together. It's so good. I hope you guys enjoyed this baked potato soup recipe today. Let me know down in the comments what your guys' favorite soup is, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.